In late October of 2020, the Pacific Ocean gave birth to one of the most powerful storms ever recorded, Typhoon Goni, known in the Philippines as Super Typhoon Rolly. This storm wasn't just strong, it was extraordinary. Goni started as a small tropical depression just south of Guam on October 26th. Within a day, it grew into a tropical storm and was given the name Goni by meteorologists. The name means swan in Korean, which is an interesting contrast to the destruction this storm would later bring. Over the next few days, Goni moved westward across the warm waters of the Philippine Sea. These warm waters acted like fuel, helping the storm gain incredible strength. By October 30th, Goni exploded in power, rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 super typhoon. That means it had sustained winds stronger than most hurricanes and typhoons that people are used to hearing about. At its peak, Goni had winds reaching almost 195 miles per hour, making it the strongest tropical cyclone ever recorded to hit land based on 1-minute sustained winds. Imagine winds so strong they could rip roofs off buildings, uproot trees, and toss cars around like toys. The storm's eye, the calm center, Kuro, was perfectly round and very small, something meteorologists call a pinhole eye. This often means the storm is at its absolute strongest. Goni maintained this intense power for more than a full day as it headed straight for the Philippines. On the evening of October 31st, it made landfall on Catanduanes, an island in the Bicol region of the country. It struck with full force, bringing catastrophic winds and torrential rains. What made this storm especially dangerous was not just the wind, but also the massive flooding it caused. As Goni barreled over the mountainous areas of the Philippines, heavy rains mixed with volcanic debris created deadly lahars, fast-moving flows of mud and volcanic ash, especially near Mayon Volcano, one of the country's most active volcanoes. These lahars swept through communities, damaging homes and blocking roads, making it hard for people to escape or receive help. Before the storm hit, the Philippine government and disaster agencies worked quickly to prepare. They issued warnings and started evacuations. Hundreds of thousands of people were moved to safer places. But the situation was complicated by the ongoing pandemic. Evacuation centers were already crowded with people seeking shelter from the virus, so managing both threats at once was a huge challenge. Despite the preparations, the typhoon caused widespread damage. Power lines went down, leaving many areas in darkness. Crops were destroyed, which affected the food supply. Roads and bridges were blocked by debris and flooding, isolating some communities. It was clear that this was one of the worst storms the Philippines had faced in recent memory. After Super Typhoon Rolly made landfall on Catanduanes Island, it didn't lose much strength as it moved across the Bicol region. Instead, the storm maintained its powerful winds and heavy rains as it swept across the provinces of Albay, Camarines Sur, and Sorsogon. The destruction followed everywhere the typhoon passed. Houses made of light materials were torn apart, and even concrete buildings suffered serious damage. Trees were snapped like twigs, and countless power poles were downed, leaving many towns without electricity for days. One of the hardest hit areas was the town of Tiwi in Albay. There, the strong winds peeled off roofs and caused flooding that reached knee-deep in some streets. Rescue workers faced dangerous conditions trying to reach people trapped by fallen trees and landslides. The storm's intense rain caused rivers to overflow quickly, washing away bridges and cutting off entire communities from emergency assistance. Schools, government offices, and businesses across the region were closed for several days as people focused on cleanup and recovery. The typhoon destroyed many boats and fishing equipment, which left coastal communities struggling because fishing is their main source of income. Many families lost everything they had, including their homes and belongings. Typhoon Rolly continued to move inland and weaken gradually, but its effects lasted long after the winds died down. Floodwaters lingered, and landslides blocked roads for weeks, making it difficult to bring food, water, and medicine to the worst affected areas. Power outages also slowed down relief efforts, and some places remained in the dark for more than a week. The Philippine government declared a state of calamity in the Bicol region to speed up aid and allow funds to be used for emergency repairs. Thousands of soldiers and volunteers were sent out to assist with rescue missions, distribute relief goods, and help clear debris. Despite these efforts, many people faced tough days ahead, with no electricity, damaged homes, and little access to clean water. In addition to physical destruction, the typhoon had a severe impact on the local economy. Farmers lost their crops just before harvest, and many workers could not get to their jobs. Markets closed and prices for basic goods rose sharply. For many families, the storm caused financial hardship that would take months or even years to recover from. Typhoon Rolly's rapid arrival also exposed weaknesses in infrastructure. Flood control systems and drainage channels were overwhelmed by the heavy rain, causing unexpected flash floods. Some roads and bridges built years ago could not withstand the storm, highlighting the need for better planning and stronger construction in typhoon-prone areas. In the aftermath of Typhoon Rolly, the focus shifted from immediate rescue to long-term recovery. Many affected communities faced a daunting challenge: rebuilding homes and restoring basic services. Local governments began assessing the damage in detail, finding that thousands of houses were either completely destroyed or severely damaged. Temporary shelters were set up, but overcrowding and lack of sanitation raised concerns about health risks. One of the biggest problems after the typhoon was access to clean drinking water. Wells and water systems were contaminated by floodwaters, increasing the risk of waterborne diseases like diarrhea and cholera. Health officials urged residents to boil water before use, and distributed water purification tablets were possible. Clinics and hospitals struggled to provide care as supplies ran low, and some facilities had also been damaged. Schools faced a major setback too. Many buildings lost roofs or suffered structural damage, forcing classes to be suspended for weeks. The Department of Education worked quickly to provide temporary learning spaces and materials, aiming to minimize disruption for thousands of students. Teachers and parents showed strong commitment, organizing lessons in community centers or under makeshift shelters. Agriculture, a vital part of the local economy, was heavily affected. Vast rice fields and plantations were flooded or destroyed just before harvest time. Farmers reported losing not only crops, but also seeds and tools needed for the next planting season. This destruction threatened food security in the region, pushing officials to plan support programs that included seeds distribution, financial aid, and farming training. Transportation infrastructure also needed urgent repairs. Landslides and fallen trees blocked key highways and rural roads, isolating remote villages. Repair crews worked tirelessly to clear debris and fix damaged bridges, but some routes remained impassable for weeks. This made it difficult to transport goods and slowed down economic activity. The electrical grid in many areas was badly damaged, power lines snapped and substations flooded, leaving thousands of households and businesses without electricity. Utility companies prioritized restoring power to hospitals, water facilities, and main towns first, but full restoration took more than a month in some places. The government and several aid organizations launched massive relief operations. Emergency food packs, blankets, and clothing were distributed to thousands of families. Psychosocial support teams were sent to help people cope with trauma and loss. Volunteers played a vital role, working alongside officials to reach even the most isolated communities. Typhoon Rolly also prompted renewed discussions about climate change and disaster preparedness in the Philippines. Experts warned that stronger and more frequent storms could become the new normal due to global warming. Many called for greater investment in resilient infrastructure, early warning systems, and community education to reduce the impact of future disasters. As the weeks passed following Typhoon Rolly, the long-term effects on the region's economy became clearer. Many small businesses, especially those dependent on tourism and agriculture, faced serious setbacks. Local markets were disrupted by the destruction of roads and power outages, reducing the flow of goods and income. Shop owners struggled to restock supplies, and many workers found themselves without jobs as businesses closed temporarily or permanently. In response, the national government launched several recovery programs aimed at jump-starting local economies. Low-interest loans and grants were made available to small business owners to help rebuild and restock. Training sessions were held to improve skills in disaster-resilient business practices, encouraging entrepreneurs to adapt to the new climate realities. One notable challenge was rebuilding schools and hospitals. Some schools had been completely flattened, requiring reconstruction from the ground up. Hospitals faced shortages of equipment and medicines, and some had to refer patients to better equipped facilities in nearby cities. International aid agencies stepped in to provide funds and technical assistance for rebuilding health and education infrastructure. The mental health impact of the typhoon also gained attention. Many survivors suffered from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress due to the loss of loved ones, homes, and livelihoods. Local health workers began community outreach programs to provide counseling and support groups. Religious and community leaders played a key role in offering comfort and helping people find hope amid the devastation. Environmental damage was another serious concern. Floodwaters and strong winds destroyed forests, uprooted trees, and damaged coral reefs along the coast. This destruction affected biodiversity and weakened natural barriers that protect communities from future storms and flooding. Environmental organizations pushed for reforestation projects and coral reef restoration to help nature recover. Scientists and disaster experts started analyzing data from Typhoon Rolly to improve forecasting models. Satellite images and weather station reports were used to understand how the storm developed and why it caused such severe damage in specific areas. These studies aim to provide better early warnings and evacuation plans for future typhoons. Community resilience also became a major focus. Many towns began organizing neighborhood disaster response teams trained in first aid, evacuation procedures, and emergency communication. These teams helped reduce casualties and damage during Rolly by acting quickly and efficiently. Schools and local governments held drills to prepare residents for the next storm season. Despite the hardships, stories of kindness and solidarity stood out. Neighbors shared food and shelter, volunteers traveled from distant provinces to help, and local leaders worked tirelessly to restore normal life. These acts of unity showed the strength of the Filipino spirit in the face of natural disasters. As the recovery efforts continued months after Typhoon Rolly, communities began focusing on long-term solutions to reduce future risks. One important strategy was improving infrastructure to withstand stronger storms. Engineers designed stronger homes with reinforced walls and roofs, and new public buildings were built on higher ground to avoid flooding. Roads and bridges were reconstructed with better materials and designs that allowed water to flow through instead of causing blockages. Local governments also improved their disaster preparedness plans. Early warning systems were upgraded with modern technology, including sirens, text alerts, and community radios, to quickly inform residents of approaching storms. Evacuation centers were expanded and stocked with emergency supplies like food, water, blankets, and medicines to support displaced families. In schools, disaster education became part of the curriculum. Children learned about typhoon safety, first aid, and how to respond during emergencies. This helped build a culture of awareness and readiness among the younger generation, empowering them to protect themselves and their families. Farmers began experimenting with more resilient crops and farming methods. Some switched to rice varieties that tolerate floods, while others built raised beds to protect plants from water damage. These changes aimed to secure food production despite unpredictable weather patterns caused by climate change. The government also worked on environmental restoration projects to reduce the impact of future storms. Mangrove forests, which act as natural barriers against waves and storm surges, were replanted along vulnerable coastlines. Wetlands were preserved and restored to absorb excess rainwater and reduce flooding in nearby towns. International organizations continued to provide support for rebuilding and development. Through partnerships, the affected regions gained access to better technology, training, and financial resources. These collaborations helped build more resilient communities that could better handle future disasters. In reflecting on Typhoon Rolly, experts emphasized the importance of learning from each storm to improve responses and save lives. While the destruction was severe, it highlighted weaknesses that could be addressed before the next disaster. The lessons from Rolly shaped policies and preparedness efforts not only in the Philippines but also in other typhoon-prone countries. Ultimately, the spirit of resilience, cooperation, and hope defined the recovery. Despite the losses, people came together to rebuild stronger, better prepared, and more united. This enduring determination serves as a reminder that while nature's power is immense, human courage and kindness are just as powerful.